Whether it's a new battery plant or the reboot of District Detroit, how much should you and I pony up for economic progress? And when a Starbucks has to close its doors because of security worries, is that just life in a big city, or is that a sign of a serious problem in Midtown? Today is Sunday, February 26, 2023, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint on the last Sunday of February. So we're just about 3 weeks from the start of spring, but you may not feel the customary urgency to get there, given that it's been such a relatively mild winter. We paid for those warmer temperatures this past week. Colder weather would have meant plenty of snow, but instead we ended up with a nasty ice storm that brought down branches and power lines and led to more conversations about infrastructure and the vulnerability of our electric grid. Hopefully we'll contend with more snow or rain and not just the dangerous in between as we move ahead. We're going to turn our attention to business and development this morning. For some time, I've been inviting the folks behind District Detroit to come on and talk about what is about to happen as well as what hasn't happened yet. And I'm happy to say they're here today to lay out the vision for us, one that was first promised nearly a decade ago. We're also going to talk about just what is fair and wise when it comes to public money and spending on development and incentives. It is a competitive world, no doubt about that, but some fear that the competition amounts to a race to the bottom and that a lot of the breaks given out to big companies can never really be amortized in a meaningful way. And what about keeping existing businesses? I don't want to sound like a coffee snob snubbed because a Starbucks at Woodward and Mack is closed, but when they say it's due to security problems, well, that's not good. We'll see if my roundtable can talk me out of that worry all today on Flashpoint. Well, it was almost 10 years ago we were treated to the renderings for District Detroit. The Red Wings were leaving the Joe behind for a new home, but it was going to be much more than a stadium development. We were told it was a neighborhood. And even those skeptical of public funding for private ownership were intrigued by its promise. Fast forward to 2023, and many would say that promise remains unfulfilled. But there is a new way forward now for the district, a $1.5 billion development that hopes to reignite those hopes and promises. Very happy to have with me this morning Andrew Cantor, the Executive Vice President for Related Companies, and Ryan English Barnhill, the Vice President of Government and Community Affairs for Olympia Development in Michigan. Thank you both very much for coming. And Ryan, let's just start with the question and I guess the skepticism that you most often get. We were told we were getting this big revolutionary idea of a neighborhood, and we mostly got a stadium and a lot of parking lots. What do you say?
So thank you for having us.
Of course.
And as a Detroiter, I think it is a natural feeling to be skeptical of development in Detroit. I think that this next vision is a continuation of that one, but I will say a tremendous amount of development has been done since the arena. And so I could rattle off the list of the Global Resource Center for Little Caesars, Women's City Club, 2715 Woodward, the Eddystone. Projects have been brought forward, but I also understand that there's a gap there of the voluminous amount or expectation of development. And so I like to think of this as a next iteration of that vision. We have the right partner at the right time who've done world-class development around the country, and I'll let my partner speak to that shortly. But I think now is the time for us to move forward with Detroiters and with the voices of Detroiters at the table to make sure that this development really is reflective of the residents of the city.
In fact, Andrew, it's interesting. Related is the Stephen Ross connected portion of all of this, and you come into this not really having been a part of it back when at its first iteration, but you walk into that skepticism now that everybody has.
Sure, and we understand that, and we're happy to have a great partner in Olympia and to really bring some of the expertise around execution and planning of mixed-use neighborhoods to the table here. And so it's been a tremendous process over the last 2+ years, working through community outreach, working with architects, engineers, and builders to make sure that we're ready to embark upon this project if we're approved.
What's been, if you had to boil it down, what was the biggest impediment to the fact that it's been, as I said, almost a decade now? It's hard to believe. It feels like yesterday we were looking at these drawings.
No, that's a great question. I would say we didn't have the right partners at the table, and also we may not have had the expertise that they have is building to scale. And so we've completed project by project, but I think the expectation of a lot of development all at the same time is now something that we can address with this partner at the table.
Andrew, I mentioned, the other skepticism comes, and this isn't just this project, this is in general right now. The whole state is talking about how much public money should be used for what amounts to a lot of private ownership. That's also a kind of skepticism when people go, look, the Ilitches and Stephen Ross have tons and tons of money, and we understand brownfield credits and the way that these are all sort of the landscape. But when you look at people concerned about the way it looks for billionaires to receive the largesse of public money, how do you handle that?
Sure. So I think there are two things. First, I do want to make sure, because there is a lot of kind of misinformation or confusion, I think, in the community about how these projects work. The way that these incentives work is that they're all performance-based. So this is not a situation where we receive the money and then disappear or have a choice about what we get to do or not do. Yeah. The incentives are actually tied to each of the specific buildings and are only received after we've made our private investment up front. So we're talking about a $1.5 billion private investment, which then, after it's completed, will receive support over the next 30 years thereafter. So it's really, in that sense, a different risk proposition for the public. And so I think that's just an important thing for everyone to understand. We take the risk, as we should be. And then if we're successful, and if we do what we say we're going to do, then there's support that we receive to make sure that these projects can be financed. The second piece of that, in terms of the idea of, why doesn't someone who's successful just reach into their pocket and kind of support this project further? That really comes down to trying to make these projects sustainable over time. Related is not a family-owned business. This is a partnership that has multiple partners, and where we look to bring in outside capital and outside investors and institutional investors from around the world. And so what I think this project could represent is an opportunity for those kinds of institutional investors to really start to pay attention to and to invest in Detroit. And by showing that that can be done, that opens up the entire market for sustainable growth, because this is not philanthropy, right? This is profit-oriented, but it also has a positive impact. And this kind of growth in the jobs, the 18,000 jobs we're talking about, the tax revenues that are created, are hugely positive for the whole community.
In fact, I'll let you both talk about what you think that the Detroit Center for Innovation, I mean, that's the kind of thing you're talking about. This is what this can actually mean. This three-pronged, I guess, part of District Detroit. What is?
Sure, I'll start.
If you could look at in your crystal ball and tell me what that eventually becomes and means for the city.
So we believe that this is a significant catalyst for the city. The talent that will be coming out of the DCI, we want to capture that. We want there to be entrepreneurs coming out of the DCI and then locating their businesses in Detroit on purpose. And so that ecosystem and that contribution from the DCI, we certainly believe will have an outflowing effect to the rest of the downtown area, and we're making a big bet on that.
Yeah, I think it's also a matter of attracting talent and retaining talent.
It's the buzzword. I mean, we talk about it every week on this program, it seems.
Yeah, and we've seen that nationally. I mean, that's part of why we think this makes so much sense, is that companies want to find talent. They want to find diverse talent, and they want to find talent, and because it's become more competitive for talent, they want to move upstream closer to that talent. And so by bringing the Center for Innovation right into the heart of Detroit, it allows for companies to say, this is a place where I want to be and I want to invest to access that talent, and therefore brings significant investment from both outside the region as well as even those who are thinking about whether they stay in the region to invest here.
Ryan, the other thing, and this is the tricky needle that you're trying to thread, and you hear this at every one of the community meetings, at the same time that everybody wants new development, they also want protection for what's there. The old, things that need to be restored rather than demolished. And taking care of the rich architectural history that is around us.
Yeah, so as a Detroiter, that is certainly a point of pride. And so I am proud to say that these projects move 5 historic assets that have been out of service, and they bring them back to life. And so again, that came out of all of this listening that we've done over the last 2 years. Take the surface parking lots and go vertical with development, and then also protect and preserve what you already have. And that is what this mix of 10 projects does.
We can get rid of we won't see the kind of parking lot acreage that we see right now that depresses people like me when they drive up and down Cass?
Yes, absolutely. So these are sites that are going vertical. Again, that's direct information from the community, direct information from City Council, reduce the parking lots, and that's ultimately been the plan. You know, you don't want to have just a sea of parking lots. You have them so that you can build development on them eventually.
Lastly, Andrew, when you attend these community meetings and you hear the criticism, what do you think is the biggest misconception that you're trying to constantly tamp out?
I think the number one misconception is this idea that the incentives are not performance related, that we don't actually have to perform. I mean, consistently there seems to be this sense that we're taking dollars away, or that, you know, we're going to take dollars or receive dollars that we wouldn't have earned by doing the things we say, and that's completely not the case. In this case, when there's talk about the $800 million of support that goes into the project, those are dollars that only exist as a result of the projects getting built. Right? This idea that the 800 could be spent elsewhere doesn't exist, because there aren't $800 million available until we do the project. And when we do the project, there's $2.2 billion of public benefit to offset that $800 million.
You wanted to jump in there.
I did, and just additionally, of the 800, more than 600 of it comes from the state of Michigan.
Absolutely.
So it's really a way to harness state dollars and drive them into the city of Detroit. And you know, when Detroiters hear that, that is very compelling, because we see state dollars go out to the suburbs. This is a way to really capture those dollars and push them into the city where they're needed.
You would allow that expectation management needs to be better, right? I mean, don't show me the logo of the Red Wings and the LED on the top of the stadium if that's not going to happen, correct?
I do. So I do think that the pretty pictures are certainly something that people get latched onto.
Yes, yes.
And I
We're visual people.
Absolutely, and I understand that. But I also want people to latch onto the opportunity that is ahead of us, that we can all experience, and that's through the jobs, that is through affordable housing. Those are aspects of this project that people have been asking for, and we look forward to delivering those.
Ryan and Andrew, I've wanted to have this conversation for some time. I so appreciate you both coming in today, and I hope we can talk about it more as we head down the road and get closer.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
You bet. We come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the business climate right now in Detroit. This is Flashpoint on Local 4. Welcome back. Our conversation on District Detroit. Good on-ramp for a little business talk, and my list is longer than the program will allow, so let's dig right in with Dennis Archer Jr., Chairman and CEO of 1642 Ventures. Tammy Carnreich is the COO of the Detroit Regional Chamber, and Kirk Penho, Senior Reporter for Crain's Detroit Business. Gang, thanks very much for being here. Let's just really quickly start with District Detroit. Tammy, is the skepticism still warranted for Detroiters, or does Stephen Ross being a part of the picture now change everything?
Absolutely. You know, this is a major development in the area of our city as we're continuing our revitalization. You have two strong developer partners here with Olympia Development and related companies. The involvement of Stephen Ross cannot be underestimated when you think about, first of all, he's a national leader in affordable housing. Is that not what our city needs? But sure. Second, you know, the University of Michigan Innovation Center, let me just go to that for a minute, coming from the business community. This is innovation and technology is the key to the future in economic growth, and it's what businesses and all sectors are looking for. So businesses are looking for innovation, technology, where they're coming from. Not only is it drawing people in, but it's also helping those who are here. And it's not just business, like automotive, healthcare, advanced manufacturing. It's the military. The military is seeking out innovation and technology around the world so they can protect our nation against our worldwide adversaries. You know, this development is so much more. We have competitive states around us who would love to have this project.
No doubt about that. Dennis, I guess in some ways I look at what it is supposed to be now. Are we better off having waited all this time, because now it can be something else than it was originally laid out to be? Does that make any sense?
It makes
or should we still just be angry that it didn't all take shape?
We should be angry. I think that the resulting development that we will have, and I have the confidence that it will be moved forward as it's laid out, will be better than what was anticipated several years ago. To respond to your question earlier, I think that first of all, we should be honored to have someone at the scale and breadth and experience as Stephen Ross come back home to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in Detroit. I think that that does instill more confidence that this will get done. But I do think that the proof is in the pudding for many Detroiters who, notwithstanding the group that was put together to negotiate the community benefits led by Chris Jackson, and not to look over all the wonderful things that Ryan Barnhill talked about, Detroiters historically look skeptically upon such projects because a lot of times there's not the delivery that was promised.
Kirk, this also plays right into this much bigger discussion that we're having, debate, argument. It's getting testy about just how much we should be giving for the promise of development. We're watching this certainly around this EV plant, you know, with a Chinese, should we even be in bed with a Chinese company to begin with, but how much, where's the fault line between this is too much to give and this is just right for economic development investment?
Well, it'll certainly depend on who you ask. I mean, when you talk about $797 or $798 million in public money going to $1.5 billion in new and redeveloped buildings, anyway you slice it, that's a lot of money, but they're accurate. I mean, it is performance-based. If they don't build anything, they don't get anything. So that's something that's important to take into consideration. It's not just the Illiches and Stephen Ross who are getting, you brought up the EV plant, but obviously this past summer there was the concern about the $60 million tax break for the Hudson site. There almost certainly will be more public money for the Monroe Block site when all is said and done. If you talk to developers, almost all of them will say that in order to get projects done in Detroit, because of the way that the rents are right now, you need public money in order to do it. And it's a long ways off before projects like this are able to get out of the ground without public money.
And Tammy, it goes to what you say, it's a competitive field. And if you don't, somebody else does. Although Virginia, the governor, Youngkin, is trying to make hay of the fact that you're willing to do that and I wasn't.
Right. And I would, you know, I want to take off of what Kirk said. There's been a lot of conversation about money going to billionaires. Let's face it, these gentlemen and their teams run national companies, national organizations. They have the wherewithal to do this anywhere they want to go. They chose Detroit. It's not going, the money's not going to them as persons. They're going to organizations and a company that has chose to make this happen here. You know, like Dennis said, the commitment of Stephen Ross is huge. It is huge for our city and our state. So, yeah, it's interesting that you have some states that maybe don't want it, but I'm going to tell you, we're in our business, there's a lot of states that are very competitive, and Detroit's now raising up on the national scene, and they're looking closely at us and what we're doing.
Definitely, which means we could do without fewer stories like the one that happened with Starbucks this past 2 weeks. I don't. Maybe I'm being overly sensitive about this because that old bugaboo about us being worried about our reputation for being a dangerous city. Am I overstating it, or should I be worried that a national chain like Starbucks decided that we just can't secure that location? We got to get out of there.
Look, for being someone that's in hospitality, there are any number of reasons why that store could have decided to close. I would not have liked to see a Starbucks pull out of Midtown, one of our most popular neighborhoods. But I do know from working with other developers that work with Starbucks that they are looking very seriously at a number of locations in and around greater downtown. So this is not Starbucks, in my opinion, pulling out of the city or losing interest in the city. It's that location. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of information. I read, like all of you read, they mentioned only a couple of issues in one sentence with no specifics.
And it is right next to another major national retailer. It's sitting right in front of Whole Foods. And so I guess I worried about the whole climate around there, but maybe better management of that.
I've never, you know, we talked about this backstage. I've never gone to the Whole Foods or that Starbucks and felt the least bit unsafe.
Kirk, give me your take, though, on now is it safe to even call us a post-pandemic world yet? Maybe not. I don't know. But give me your thoughts on the business climate and now in Detroit, trying to figure a way forward when now maybe not everybody is returning to work. All these different things that sort of make this a really jumbled bag.
So this location will be important to evaluate because it is kind of like one of the main spots in town, right? It's the hard corner of Woodward and Mack. whatever goes in that spot needs to be high prominence, high visibility, that sort of thing. It's also important to remember that in addition to the Whole Foods, it's immediately across the street from where the new small format Target store is supposed to go. Start construction here at some point in time here somewhat soon.
Yeah, terribly important.
Yeah, so it's not like that location can't support retail and shops like that. And also important to note that Starbucks noted, and others have noted, that Starbucks has closed several locations around the country in response to issues like it says that it is.
Yeah.
So it's not just the Midtown one, there are locations around the United States where it's not.
Yeah.
So.
Tammy, as we zoom out then, business climate right now at the Chamber, we're talking about what's happening with District of Detroit. This massive development that Henry Ford Hospital is, health system's going to do there in the New Center area. Pretty optimistic right now, or?
Very optimistic. Oh, no, I mean, yes, we're post-pandemic. We're getting there, right? And nothing's going to be the same. It's not going to be the same. It's going to continue to change. And at our Detroit Policy Conference, Antoine told you, we have to evolve. The fact that these types of developments are happening and this kind of money's coming forward to do it, how can we not be optimistic? That's only going to create more jobs. I think, what was it, 18,000 for, you know, that we were just talking about. Henry Ford becoming a medical research center to bring to Detroit. How can we not be optimistic? There's probably sections of our business sector that aren't quite making it yet after post-pandemic, but they'll change, and we'll continue to see change.
I doubt I'll get much pessimism out of Dennis here. Never. But I also know we have problems with people who can't find enough employees. People we keep going back to the word talent. I mean, there's a lot of clouds still on the horizon, aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, the talent issue is pervasive. I know that we have, and a couple of different of our businesses have, job postings, and we're not getting the quality of talent that we used to get. We get what we think are quality based on resumes. We schedule a Zoom interview and they don't show up. And so it's an interesting time. To Tammy's point, things will not be the same, but I think it's a very exciting period because we can all reset. And you wanted to get a special mention into some excitement around Paradise Valley. Yeah, I mean, it's a $50 million African American development in downtown Detroit. Each of the projects is in different stages. This summer you'll see a new hospitality entrance. They're going to be elevated high-end hospitality, a number of cool office spaces that, because we were postponed during COVID, we were able to build those out in kind of this new format with many open spaces within the offices. So invite you and the team to come down. Well, you guys have talked me out of my, Starbucks pessimism that I had there, which is good. Hopefully better things ahead. Gang, thanks so much for the conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
We'll wrap things up for Flashpoint right after this on Local 4. Don't go away. One other development this past week I wanted to get to. Matthew Maroon telling our Rod Maloney they don't need to replace the Ambassador Bridge. It's good for another 75 to 100 years. Was that a surprise?
Well, first of all, I'm not an engineer, so I can't talk to 75 to 100 years, but I am not surprised because Matthew's made it very clear he wants to become a part of the community and support the community.
We got to leave it there. Meet the Press is next. See you next week.